Welcome to Shine Your Light Conversations, where we meet ordinary women being extraordinary. These are women who are courageous and living their truth. There's a woman who is shining their light to empower themselves and inspire others. I'm Kate Watkinson, your host, and I'd really love to welcome Dr. Ellen Joan Nelson with us today. Dr. Ellen Joan is an academic business mum who's on a mission to change the world and to challenge the status quo. So welcome, Ellen.
Hi, Kate.
So how's your morning been? How's the morning flow for you? What's a typical morning for you?
So usually I wake up to my kids. I don't need an alarm clock because they wake me up. So had a good morning, had a cuddle with the boys, and then they are off to daycare. And I actually just had a walk this morning, which I don't have every day, but it was nice. I walked for about 20 minutes and that was nice.
Awesome. So that sort of puts you in a good frame for the rest of the day, that being out in nature and breathing the fresh air?
Absolutely. And I was actually excited. I thought it'd be nice before I come and talk to you, Kate. Like walking's quite a nice way to, sort of energize you.
Yeah, I know for me, I often get these, I get so much clarity and sense of, I plan a lot of my yoga classes and lots of things happen when I'm out for a walk or out for a run. And I just get all this, it's like downloads basically, that is so much more efficient than if I'd just been, thinking things through at a desk or something. Yeah, it's good.
Yes.
It's good.
I
have to be honest and say that this is the first time I've interacted in this capacity with a woman that's had a military background. So I have to be really upfront and say this is good because you have challenged me in a positive way to step out of my familiarity and my comfort zone. But I'd love to hear from you about, you have this background that includes being in the military, that includes being a mother, that includes being in the academic and the business world. And to me, that's all pretty funky, so many variations there. But do you feel like there was a common theme or a thread that has shaped you, that is woven through there, that shaped your experiences?
Oh, that's a big question. Yeah, I think so. And I don't think I consciously realized that until recently. So now that I've got my own business, I had to kind of do quite a lot of thinking around what's kind of my story and my purpose. And then you had to kind of reflect back on my journey and I had to think about what is the link between them all. This sounds cheesy, don't get me wrong. I do lots of things for myself that I enjoy doing, but I have this idea that I like helping people that are maybe the underdog or helping people that aren't necessarily getting the best or the fairest go. And that's something that I'm really motivated towards doing. Gosh, that sounds like I'm trying to big myself up there. Again, it's not my only motivation in life, but that is something that that drives me, is trying to make things better or fairer for people that aren't getting the best deal.
And would you say then that those backgrounds between the military and the academic world and being, all of those things have got that running through, that you are supporting the underdog and really giving space to those people that may not have had it otherwise to lift their lives? Is that?
I think maybe less so the academic. If I'm really honest, the academic was more for my own personal challenge. And so that was kind of probably more about me wanting to do this challenge. But interestingly, what I studied, which has then led to my business, absolutely aligns with what you just said there. And yeah, the military, absolutely. Like the things that I loved about my service were deploying overseas and helping communities that we were able to support. So yeah, I think they do align in that way.
That's really nice to hear that, because I guess for me, I often consider the army, the military, as quite a patriarchal, male-dominated world that, it's really nice to hear that sense of what you've spoken to then about supporting communities and people in need. And how was your experience of being a female in the army? Like, how was that in quite a male-dominated world, really? Would you say it still is a male-dominated world?
Yeah, I could talk about this for ages, but I'll try and keep it brief. But basically, so Kate, I loved it. Honestly, I had 10 years in the New Zealand Army and I loved it. It was fantastic. All these amazing people that I got to meet, this training that I got in terms of, leadership training, physical training, getting to travel, getting to do all these exciting opportunities. And I, hands down, I loved it. When you said, what's it like being a woman in the army? So when I served, I would almost avoid answering that question. I hated if people said, oh, what's it like being a woman? I'd be like, well, no different. It's exactly the same as being a man. I get treated exactly the same, and I can do anything the boys can do. And kind of almost hated the idea of identifying myself as a woman in the army. But when I left and I did this PhD research, which was around the experiences of women in the army, and I interviewed all these other women, and what I learned is that they too, just like me, had had lots of great experiences, but there was, unfortunately, kind of some recurring themes of challenges that were very specific to gender. And what that forced me to do was reflect back on my own experiences and realize that not everything maybe was as peachy as I thought it had been. And realize that, there were some things that were kind of tough being a female in the army. So I don't know if that answers your question. So I felt like when I was serving, I didn't even notice my gender. But when I did this research and reflected back, realized that, it is. I mean, it is tough. It is definitely a male-dominated organization, and you have to be kind of pretty tough and thick-skinned to survive. But I did still love it. It's a really interesting. Sorry, I'm losing my words.
Almost a paradox.
Yes, thank you. That's the word I was looking for.
Yeah.
This contrast between like loving it, and I love the fact that it was so, it was, you challenged yourself, and it was physically tough and demanding, and I really loved that. But at sometimes you'd almost get kind of looked down on if you had any kind of soft skills such as compassion or relationship focus and that kind of thing. So two sides to it, I guess.
Yeah, and thank you for being really open about that. Like, I often consider women that have gone into like so much of our world is quite institutionalized in the masculine that we're not even aware of it, that we're not actually aware that on some level we could be compromising who we are as a woman by being in those situations, and we're so desperate to make it work that we are willing to kind of almost overlook some of those things. So it's interesting that you say, you didn't, and that's fine. I mean, that's great that you did love it, but also really amazing to have looked back later and considered and reflected and recognized some, perhaps, I guess you could say, opportunity for change. Yeah. And that's really where, well, you can speak to this, but I understand that's really sort of what your focus with the research was, like on where has the army been and where are the opportunities to grow and perhaps be a bit more inclusive of both genders. Could you explain that for us?
Yeah, sure. So when I went into the journey, honest, and I want to just be really blunt about this, I did it just because I wanted a PhD. It wasn't because I thought I'm passionate about this topic. I want to fix the army. I want to make it better for women. It was just, I wanted this qualification for a personal challenge. And I just thought, oh, this topic will be interesting enough. I know a lot about it. It'll be a topic that will be the vehicle to kind of get the qualification that I wanted. But when I got into it, that is when kind of my passion for the subject grew. And I realized that, there were all these recurring themes of not good experiences. And as I said, I reflected on my own experiences and thought, there were some things that I thought were okay. And now I realize they totally weren't. And I can't even believe that I thought that those things were okay. And so that was almost a little bit depressing. Gosh, there's this organization I love, and here's a bunch of crappy findings about them. But that's when I thought, well, hey, this is an opportunity, as you just said. I thought the army, they want more women. They say it publicly all the time, and it's still genuinely, it's an amazing career. I believe that hands down. My research did not change that. But I thought, here's an opportunity to make it better. And so that's what I did. I basically then used that research and worked alongside the chief of the army and his senior leadership team for about 18 months, effectively sharing the findings in terms of, hey, these are the issues, but then more importantly, here are some things that you can do to make, kind of take away these barriers that are facing women. And the bit that I get really excited about, I feel like I'm giving like my party line, but I believe it, is that the things that make it better for women also make it better for men. It's not this kind of yeah, we're going to make it better for women at the expense of men, or at the expense of the organization, or, you know, at the expense of, say, the military mission. No, like, if you make it better for women and, you know, have better commitment towards including and valuing them and what they bring, that's good for the guys as well, and it's good for the mission. And so I almost find it an easy, I don't know if sell is the right word, but it is. I'm not sort of saying women are having it tough and fix it for them at your expense. They go hand in hand.
Yeah, I so agree with you. Like, even if we touch on the institution that is patriarchal, I would actually argue it doesn't serve men either. It doesn't serve either gender. Like, so many things are like that. It's just that we've often become, it's familiar. And so some of these sort of beliefs or things just carry on because they're familiar. But 100% agree with you that these positive changes can influence everybody for the better. Yeah. So what were some of the key findings that you could really put to the Army, and have they been able to implement them, and how's that all rolled out for you?
Yeah, so there were the key areas, and I'll be again up front as well. I certainly haven't, you know, solved Army culture perfect for women now. That's not the case. You know, this is a long journey, and it takes a long time for culture change. But what I will say is the Army have addressed kind of the low-hanging fruit, or the sort of the easy things to fix, which I'm really proud of that, actually. And they've also now got a massive commitment and kind of change program in place to implement the deeper cultural barriers. But there were kind of a few categories. The first one is what I'd call just like really easy basic stuff. So their recruiting campaigns, for example, they really lacked women. So that's your first one, right? If you want to recruit more women, you've got to make sure there's women in the recruiting advertisements. So that's kind of a basic one. Another one in this basic category is around uniforms and equipment. So the camouflage uniform, which I wore for 10 years, it's boys' clothes. There's no female fit. It's not like there's a man's version and a woman's version. It's a version, and you wear it. And so as a woman, you know, it just doesn't look as good on you, right? Like, the shoulders are too broad. You know, we've got busts, we've got hips, we've got, you know, just a different shaped body, and the uniform wasn't designed for us. So that's, you know, the Army is now addressing that, so that there is a fit for, you know, different body shapes. So they're kind of what I call the, I don't know, category of sort of just basic stuff. The second one was a big theme was around this idea of authentic leadership. And so what I found from all the women that I interviewed is that they feel that the Army trains a very specific type of leader. And there's sort of a spectrum of leadership, and they felt that the Army trained one end of that spectrum. So kind of very regimented, very decisive, sort of very assertive, and sometimes even aggressive, kind of that sort of style, very task focused. Yet the women that I interviewed, 18 out of 20 of them, so, you know, 90%, and also I'm on this category as well, naturally our leadership style was at the other end of that spectrum. So more relationship focused, more collaborative, more inclusive. And so what that meant is that the women felt that they were kind of always either looked down on or criticized because they had a different approach. And with that half of the women, they then kind of changed the way that they were to try and be more at this end. And that's not cool, right? Because then they felt that they weren't really the person that they wanted to be, and they weren't themselves. And then the other half, they kept being true to themselves. That was me. I kept being me, but always felt a little bit naughty about it, that wasn't really the valued way to be a good leader in the Army. So that's kind of theme number two. The third one was around kind of just nasty attitudes towards women. So there was examples of, you know, gender discrimination, kind of bullying, harassment, and then the really serious stuff like sexual harm. So that was, you know, kind of those nasty things was theme number three. And then the fourth and final one was around the challenges of being a mum, or, you know, logistically, how do you be a mum in the Army, both from a physical point of view. You know, the Army is a very physical job. So how do you navigate that while you're pregnant, while you're breastfeeding, when you're returning to work, you know, postpartum, and then the logistics of childcare. So big answer, but yeah, they were kind of the four themes.
That's fantastic. So can I ask you, you touched on perhaps various leadership styles. Is there some really good research and evidence out there to show that these more relationship styles of leading that acknowledge the human element a bit more perhaps than the quite assertive ones? Is there good information to show that that kind of leadership does work and could work within the context of the army?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the bit that gets me excited, right? Those ones at that end of the spectrum, heaps of research to show that that actually does deliver really good results with teams and can totally be used in the military. What I'm always clear to say, though, it's not saying that those types are bad. What I'm saying is that there's a spectrum of leadership, and actually in different settings and with different people, different approaches work well, right? So if you think about in the military, if you're actually on the battlefield and you need things to be done immediately, actually someone who's really decisive, very assertive, can be very commanding, you actually need that, right? In that moment, you don't want someone who's going to take time to talk about it with everybody else. You just want decisions to be made. But what we need to remember is that those situations are a tiny, tiny fraction of a person's career in the military. Some people never actually get themselves into that situation in the military. A lot of your time as a leader in the army, and in fact in all organizations, as a leader, your job is to develop your people, right? It's to support them to do their tasks. It's to help them grow. And actually, some of the things at this end of the spectrum are incredibly useful for achieving those outcomes.
Yeah, I love that. And I was just thinking as you were speaking, it made me consider our nervous system that, for the bulk of our time, we really want to be in the parasympathetic nervous system where we're actually relatively relaxed. But in certain situations, we need to have the sympathetic system where we're totally switched on for danger if need, and both are completely necessary, and to learn to live in a way that's healthy for both of those. So I totally get what you're saying, that there's a time and a place for both of those styles, and yeah, really cool to consider that they could both exist within that culture. That's awesome. Yeah. So part of your academic research as well, and what your business is, a key focus of this is the Work School Hours campaign. Can you tell us what this means and why we need to know about it and all the good things?
Yes, so I'm really excited about this. And is it okay if I just quickly tell you the journey of getting to that piece?
Please.
Before I then talk it?
Please.
So what happened is, after I did this kind of journey of being in the army, then researching about the army, and then kind of advising to the New Zealand Army, I got asked to speak at a few different events about that experience. And the people that were asking me to talk, they said, please, share the themes of the findings, which I did with you today as well. But can you kind of hone in on the theme that I thought would be most relevant to the people in that audience, which were more kind of corporate sector or civilian, so not a military setting. And I feel that actually all of those themes are relevant outside of the military, but I focused in on the theme around being a working mum. And I talked about, the challenges of, the logistical challenges of childcare and how that related with my research. Then what happened, totally like unintentionally, Kate, I didn't actually mean to do this. All these women who had been in these audiences just started reaching out to me and wanted to tell me about their experience being a working mum. And because I guess, I've done research, I sort of couldn't help myself almost putting on my research hat and taking a note of what they were saying. So I'm very clear in saying, this is not, the most perfectly rigorous piece of research. It's not the same level as my PhD. This was more kind of informally people reaching out to me. But it started off, there were 82 mums, working mums, who reached out and told me their story. And I can tell you what the findings were if you like, but there were kind of two categories of what happened. And both of them, Kate, were crap. I thought both of these situations that working mums are experiencing are bad. Like, none of them are happy. And because I now have two children myself, I've got a 1-year-old and a 4-year-old, kind of living and breathing this also. I kind of got frustrated, almost like I did when I got the findings from the army research. I was like, this is frustrating. Here's some disappointing things. Let's try and address it. And that's the same thing that led to #WorkSchoolHours. So it was, here are some disappointing findings that women in the workforce are experiencing. And I believe that the root cause of them is the mismatch between work and school. And so my goal for the world is to is to reduce work, to align it with the school schedule. It just seems crazy to me that in a modern day society, we've got adults and children on different schedules. It just, sorry, I'll talk for hours about this, so rein me in when you need me to, Kate. But it's, yeah, I just think it's crazy that there's this mismatch. So I want to I think we can do better as a society. But as I said earlier around making things better for women, actually it's also good for men and organisations too. I'm convinced the same is true here as well. If you make life better for working parents, actually that's going to be good for all staff, and even non-parents, and it's going to be economically smart.
Awesome. So that kind of leads me into the next question, that you believe that with crisis comes opportunity. So really, yeah, you're suggesting that we've identified what the crisis is and the opportunity. So in terms of how do we make that happen? How do we change a culture that's been so ingrained in the 9 to 5 and wearing that badge of like you're really worthwhile when you're contributing and you're working hard? And how do we, what's your suggestions for shifting? How do we do that?
Yeah, so I mean, this is a big ambitious goal I have, right? Like I know that this is not something that I'm probably going to maybe ever achieve in full, let alone overnight. But I think what I've always found is that if we want to make change, we need the people that are ultimately the decision makers in this change to see the benefit. And so I'm not kind of pushing #work school hours by lobbying the government to try and get the government to go and enforce these changes. That could actually be a valid avenue, but it's kind of not the way I'm taking. I'm more looking at it that organizations are the ones that have the power to change some of these practices. And so what I'm trying to do now is, both as a speaker and in my consulting side of my business, is to help organizations understand why they would benefit from this. So organizations are struggling when it comes to attracting and retaining the best talent. You know, right now we are in the middle of the Great Resignation. That's not going to go on forever, but there's always going to be a challenge that firms have to get the best talent and retain them. We've also got a productivity issue. So, you know, New Zealand does actually pretty poorly on the world scale when it comes to productivity. We work long hours, but we don't actually necessarily have high outputs. We've also got kind of a mental health crisis happening in New Zealand. And staff and organisations now know that staff well-being, actually it's important, not just because that's nice, and obviously I care about it because that's a nice thing to care about, but it's also commercially smart. So staff at work that have good well-being and are happy, they perform far better for organisations. So if I kind of take that as the starting point, that organisations are facing these problems, they need better productivity, they need better productivity, they need their staff to be kind of healthier and happier, and they need to attract and retain the best talent. The status quo, which is kind of 9 to 5, isn't helping them to achieve that. So I strongly, strongly believe that if organisations looked at how they might be able to structure work differently, a key one around that is flexibility. How do they look at focusing more on the outputs they want their staff to do, as opposed to, you know, the inputs or the hours they do? And one of the most exciting ways that they could do this is look at how do they better serve working parents, because they are a huge chunk of the population, right? 80% of people do become parents. And so if they look at how do we make life better for working parents and make sure that it's available to everyone, I'm always very clear there, don't, you know, penalize the non-parents. It's look at this massive chunk, how do we serve their needs and make sure it's available for everybody? And if they do this, I genuinely believe that they will experience commercial benefits.
It's so great. And I know for myself that I feel like as a working parent, it's all only just okay when everything's working, but it only takes one thing out of the mix. It takes a child having a cold one day, or it takes just, you know, suddenly there's a school pet day or one thing, and everything's thrown up in the air. And I know for me, I'm so passionate about the work I do, but I'm also very grateful that it's all been built around flexibility, so I can A, manage my own health, and B, manage the health of my family, because I know absolutely for certainty that I am no good to myself, to my family, or to my work if I don't have flexibility for, yeah. And it's great, you know, that there's starting to be more recognition around, and we know that when people, I mean, there's no such thing as work-life balance. That kind of suggests that, you know, your work is somehow separate to the rest of your life. But if you have things going on in your life, as in a sick parent, or perhaps there's a divorce or something happening, there's no way that that's not going to come into your work. I mean, you are still the same human being, whether you're at work or whether you're outside of work. And so we have to take care of people so they do good work. They do good work when they're in a good space to do good work. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I love what you just said there. So I feel like organizations in the past, and there's still some that absolutely do this, they have this idea that, yeah, when you turn up to work, you be a worker. You leave your personal crap at the door, you come in here and you do the job for me. And I remember even being in an interview only a few years ago, a job interview, and the boss said, you know, what happens if you have, problems with your relationship? How will you make sure that doesn't affect you at work? And of course, I answered in a way that I thought I was supposed to, and said, oh no, I'm very professional, I wouldn't let that happen, blah, blah, blah. But that's actually bullshit. I can't believe I said that, because as you just said, Kate, you're still the same person. And if you've got stuff happening in life, you are distracted from your work. That's a fact. There's no point in pretending about it. Even if you sit at your desk from 9 to 5, doesn't mean your mind is contributing for that period. So if managers can look at, well, how do we do better at accommodating kind of the personal needs of our staff? And I'm kind of, my starting point is the ones that have children, but there's all kinds of other needs in terms of, you know, you mentioned looking after an elderly parent, even things like, you know, someone needs to get their car serviced, or they need their own personal doctor's appointment, or, you know, the washing machine's broken down and they need to deal with that. Just if you let your staff deal with that stuff and give them the flexibility to deal with that when they need to deal with it, when they are actually working, whether that's at home or in the office or wherever it is, their brain will be far more kind of focused, and they will give you so much more than if they're just at the office when they're supposed to be, but they're distracted. I just think it makes sense. I don't even think this is a kind of a hard rocket science argument, right? If people aren't distracted, they will work better for you. It's commercially smart.
It is a shift in perception, though, isn't it? From a culture that has valued hours put in rather than quality or focus. So you are a mother yourself. So how has becoming a mother, how has that changed you? Like, how do you see the world now? Like, has it changed the way you consider the world? Or, yeah, I mean, I'm really passionate about motherhood. My dissertation was on the journey of motherhood, and that it's actually a very sacred journey. So it really speaks to me. And again, I feel that's something that's quite undervalued in our culture. So I'd love to hear your perspective. It doesn't have to be all rose tinted glasses either.
Oh, good. So of course being a mum's changed me. It has, no doubt about it. My kids they are my biggest priority, and I want to do the best things I can for them as a mum. But I'll also be honest in that in some ways I am still the same person, and sometimes I can get frustrated when people maybe have treated me differently because I'm a mum. That mum doesn't equate with being someone who's very smart or very business focused or has ambition and career goals. And I'm like, no, I actually think they go one and the same. It's almost like society expects that you either are one of those ambitious career focused women who therefore doesn't give your children your all, or you're a very earthly mother who gives your children everything. Like, they're kind of the two options. And I think, well, that's crap. I want to kind of do both. I mean, I'm not earthly. I buy processed foods and things like that because I'm a terrible cook, and I take shortcuts. I'm not a wonderful earthly mother, but I want to spend time with my kids. And when they, my eldest starts school later this year, I want to pick him up from school every afternoon, and I want to spend time with him. I mean, not every single day of the year forever, but basically I want to be there with my kids. But I'm also really ambitious, and I want to have a career, and I love the work that I do, and I get excited about working, and that is a part of my identity. I like that side of it. And I am frustrated that right now I think the construct makes you kind of have to fight one off against the other. You know, the amount of mums who leave work at 3 o'clock to pick up their kids and feel crap about themselves for it. I'm like, why does that exist? Sorry, I've gone on a tangent. But yes, I feel like I want to be a good mum, but I'm also very ambitious, and I want to work out how can we do those two things together in a way that, you know, the wheels don't fall off.
I love that so much. And I've come to realize that the absolute greatest gift I can give my children is being in my own power, like living my truth and living a life that's in accordance with me, which for me is a balance of having a career and being a mother. And yeah, I think that is because so many things are subtle in the mothering, like what they just pick up, you know. So to do both is completely, it's, to me, it's really about living your truth, which is what this whole podcast is about, you know, living your truth. So that is your truth, what you've just articulated. And what you're desiring is to set up a life that you can have both, that, you know, you can have this amazing career and be really passionate and lit up about it and leave it at 3 o'clock so you can pick your kids up and be with them and be present with them. So, I mean, that's fantastic. Yeah, that's being authentic. Yeah, it's awesome.
Thanks. That's the goal anyway.
So can I ask, is there a particular practice that you have in your life that allows you to thrive, like whether it's exercise or meditation or read? Is there anything at all that you really prioritize that brings you, you know, home to a sense of thriving rather than just being on that treadmill of surviving?
I think, and I don't always prioritize this, so that's, I'll be honest, like this is a lesson. I don't know if a lot of women do this or a lot of mums do this, where we actually often prioritize ourselves very low. And I hate that. I'm a big hypocrite. Here I am saying I want women to have better lives for themselves, but don't always do that perfectly, and take time out to, you know, actually do things that bring me energy. But there's kind of 3 things that do. I love dancing. And by dancing, I don't mean like going to a formal ballet lesson. I mean, like I like going out to nightclub type scenarios with that kind of music and dancing. And that's not always that realistic, A, because of COVID, and B, you know, I have tiny kids, so it's quite hard to go out on a Saturday night at, you know, midnight. But sometimes I have stupid dance parties at home. So that's what I do for joy. I walk. So walking is something I do as much as I possibly can. So a lot of my work involves phone calls, and I'm always walking. In fact, the first time we talked, Kate, I was walking. So I do that as much as possible walking. And the third thing is I love this stuff, like talking to someone that is also passionate like this. You're filling my cup right now, Kate, doing this. So I think there's activities that drain your cup, and then there's activities that fill it up. So these kind of, I don't know, I call it like special interactions. This kind of stuff brings me joy. So that'd be, the 3 things that, bring me joy and help me to thrive. I don't always do them perfectly, but yeah.
I love that. I'm just trying to find an Albert Einstein quote on dancing, which I love so much, because one of the practices I offer is Koya, which is all around embracing our essence as woman, as being wise, wild and free through dance. So that we take this journey and it's all through dance. But Albert Einstein has this beautiful this quote: "We dance for laughter, we dance for tears, we dance for madness, we dance for fears, we dance for hopes, we dance for screams. We are the dancers, we create the dreams."
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, so lots of goodness in the dancing. I'd say, get your dance on. That's fantastic. That's really good.
I loved, and actually, sorry, one extra thing to the dancing. This is like a really stupid thing. I make stupid rap videos.
Ooh.
And I've made like 3 or 4 ever in my life, but I did one when I was pregnant with my second baby. It's really stupid, but I did like you know the song Ice Ice Baby?
Yeah.
I like changed the lyrics, and it was about being pregnant, and I filmed myself dancing. It's really stupid, but
that's cool. So is that on your website?
Not on my website, no, but it's on my YouTube channel.
Ah, okay. Everyone go to the YouTube channel to check that out.
Stupid, and I'm a real dick, but it makes me happy. So
That's brilliant. I love it. That's so gold. Okay, I'm going to ask you, you're going to complete these statements for me. A sense of humour is?
Essential.
Oh, nice. Absolutely. I love being a woman because?
Because it is okay and encouraged to be relationship focused and collaborative and all these things that I love being, that I feel like we have far more permission to be like that as a woman.
Lovely. And my soul is?
Happy. Yeah,
Brilliant.
my soul's happy.
Brilliant. So I did put a question to you about what your favourite Shine Your Light card was. Can you remember that? I can remind you, I have it here.
Yes, I hope I've got this right. The candle doesn't dim the first one.
Yeah, a candle
Is that the one I wrote?
A candle loses nothing by lighting another candle.
Yes. So, and the reason that I love this one, and it's there's actually another quote from, oh my gosh, Madeleine Albright. She had a quote, and it says, "There's a special place in hell for women who don't help other women." And I know that's a slightly more aggressive quote than the one that you've just given, but
sometimes you need that.
To me, they're similar in the sense that I feel, well, not feel, this is a fact, right? Women in the world are not getting as good a deal as men. That is a fact. And so but what I do feel is that in order to help women to get a better deal, we should do it together. And women holding each other's hands and bringing each other up helps that. So when your quote was, one candle doesn't lose any brightness by lighting another, that's the way I see it as well. So one woman doesn't lose her power in the room by helping another woman to get power and join that room too. And I think sometimes there are examples where some women feel or fear that, they're lucky that they've got their seat at the table, and so there's only room for one and that's it. Where I'm like, no, women can gain strength by bringing more to the table. So anyway, I kind of rambled a bit, but that's why I love when I saw that quote around the candle. I was like, I love that. It's true. The first candle lights another and it's still just as bright.
And that is such a perfect way to close our conversation, Ellen, because the whole essence of these Shine Your Light conversations is to inspire and empower, to acknowledge the women that are really living their truth and to celebrate that, but also to know that in doing so, that flame that's lit up from that person naturally radiates to other people. And that is so powerful that, I love that so much, that we can all be in our truth and all light each other up and still be successful, however whatever you glean success as. But it's not a one or the other. She has it, I don't. We can all rise up together. Yeah. So thank you very much. Is there any last requests, any last nuggets of wisdom you'd like to share?
No, I feel like that one was my nugget of wisdom, is that women help each other.
That was absolutely a nugget of wisdom. It really was. Yes.
Okay, thank you. I was really flattered that you asked me to be on this, and it's just been really fun talking with you. So thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Ellen, and thank you, listeners, for being with us today. So go out and shine your light and live a thriving life. Thank you.